Right, hello everyone. Welcome to AndyDavo's Guide to Vampires. Let's dive straight in. So as always with these race guides, I will be going through different sections. So we're going to have, first of all, we're going to introduce the player types. Then I'm going to give you 3 different rosters that you could pick from to start your game up. Then we're going to talk through how to level up the team. And building it from initial up to a low team value, then to a sort of a mid-team value where you would see it in league, and once you get going, and then maybe if you were sort of thinking about where to take the team, if you were playing Battleship Bowl very at the top end, then we've got something for you there. I'm also going to show you inside Blood Bowl 3 where you're able to look at the cosmetics, so you can see what impact those different cosmetic sets have on your players, both out of game and in game. And then finally, we'll wrap up and we'll look at some inducements and what could you take if you find yourself being the lower team value in any particular match. So, first of all, let's dive in and we'll look at the player types for vampires. Vampires, as you can see here, we've got 5 different player types on the roster. They have access to a big guy, which is the Vargeist. We've got 3 different types of vampire. Which is a big change to those of you who played Blood Bowl 2, where there was only 1 type of vampire and we got 6 of them. We've now got 6 vampires, but they're 3 different sets of 2. And then we've got Thralls, which are largely unchanged from Blood Bowl 2. So, first of all, the big guy, Vargeist. Now, Vargeist, I believe, is a German word, and it means strong, yet not required. And so, yeah, I think that's why it's been called a Vargeist, because it's the best big guy in the game that you probably never take. It does look very pretty, and I do like the cosmetic. As you can see on the right hand side here, we've got the legendary cosmetic, so they do look cool. And it's sort of half big guy, half alien from the Ridley Scott universe, I think, at the top end. But it's movement 5, so it's not slow. It's not particularly fast. It's not Croxagore fast, but it's not slow. It's strength 5. It's got an agility stat of 4+. Can't throw the ball, fine, but it is quite tanky for anything really at AV 10+. It's got claws and frenzy, which of course you'll be used to already. We've got regeneration, we've got the standard loner 4+ if anything goes wrong, and then we've got bloodlust. I'm going to cover that skill in a moment, specifically and separately when we go on to the actual vampires. But yeah, it's pretty good. The downsides of it, it's costing 150k. Yeah, that's a lot for a player. And again, we'll come on to why that's such a problem for vampires moving over the next bit of the video. But it is very expensive, and then it's just not sort of play you're going to need. But anyway, that's what it looks like, and you can have 1 of them. Next, the vampire throws. We get access to 2 of these. This is one of the sets of cosmetics, so this isn't the default skin. Vampires were movement 6 previously, they're still movement 6 now in these 2. Still strength 4, so stronger than your average player. We've got an agility of 2+, so great picking the ball up, great dodging, great at moving around. We've got a passing stat of 2+ as well, so very, very good at lobbing the ball. Average armor value of 9+, fine. And then we've got another skill which is only currently in Blood Bowl 3 and I think on 1 or possibly 2 players. Eldril Sidewinder is the one that stands out and says, I've got this already. We've got the Bloodlust trait again, and then we've got Pass and we've got Regeneration. One of the things that makes the throwers so good though is their access in their strength, their primary skill trees. So we've got Passing, Agility and General, meaning we can get access to the leader skill, we can get Block, we can get Dodge, we can get Pro. There's a lot to like in this on this player, only for a shade over 110k, so costing equivalent almost to a Chaos Warrior or to a Khorne Bloodseeker, but we get a better stat line and we get better skill access, so very, very good, very, very good players. Next we get Blitzers. We get 2 of these as well, and as the name suggests, they're much better at fighting than they are at throwing, so their pass stat is terrible at 5+, but they are the same stat line other than that. So movement 6, strength 4, agility 2+, and AV 9+. We get 2 of these. We're probably taking both of them again. But what is interesting about this player is his starting skill is Juggernaut. which is very good at blitzing and turning both down results into a push. So if you're blitzing with them, they're less likely to turn over at the very beginning of the game when you maybe don't have block. So very strong, very good. And also, along with the throwers, have regeneration, so are able to potentially stay in the fight a little bit longer than they might always otherwise be. So, very good player. Then we get something which is very different to those of you who played Blood Bowl 2, which is the last two vampire slots, sort of 5 and 6 on the roster, are taken up by vampire runners. And loads of the stats lines different here. So, we've got a movement 8, not movement 6. So, rapid. We've got strength 3, not strength 4. So, easier to punch off your opponent. So, quick, agile, but not as strong. And then also, they're AV 8+, so they're very flimsy. So, you might start to get an inkling about in terms of how to play this player. Fast, not strong, and not very hardy. Means that they need looking after. Great for things like one-turns, though. Very good for one-turns. So, these are your last two. You will almost certainly always take both of these. And for me, I think they go in the starting rosters a lot because they are amazing players. And then finally, we have the Thralls. So Thralls are exactly the same as in the previous edition. Movement 6, Strength 3, Agility 3+. So average at everything, really. Passing on 4+, and AV 8+ as well, same as the runners. So very, very flimsy. Only have general skill access on a primary. And, can't get passing, can't get mutation. They may as well just say, body bags. They are just there to stand and take punishment. They're only 40k. Doesn't shrug your shoulders when one dies. Doesn't matter. They're there to just support the vampires and field up to 11. A bit like a snotling or a goblin, right? No one cares. Do not expect great things from these players. Now, I think it's the next thing to do is to introduce, before we go into any other section of the video, the two skills inside vampires that make vampires completely unique to any other player type, team type in Blood Bowl 3. And they are the combination of the Bloodlust and the Hypnotic Gaze skill. So first of all, let's talk about the good one, which is the Hypnotic Gaze skill. Just over my shoulder on this side here, it does actually have the tooltip, and it is pretty accurate. So Hypnotic Gaze is a special action which would replace a block or a blitz or a pass. And it means that you can walk up to your opponent, or if you're next to it, you can perform this action, and you can try and hypnogaze them. And when you hypnogaze them, that player loses all their tackle zones, like they've gone really stupid, and they also critically lose all of their normal skills, their active skills, so like block, dodge, stand firm, sidestep, sure hands. All those sorts of skills that you really like on a player, they all get switched off. And all 6 vampires do a Hypnogaze attack on a 2+. So it is very easy to turn skills off. Very easy. And that means that they are able to, a standard cage, when you put the ball inside it, Hypnogaze a cage corner, Hypnogaze the vampire, the ball carrier, punch the ball carrier, and then the ball will just automatically it's going to go loose, isn't it? If you strip ball or if you knock it over. So they are a very, very, very strong team on defense because their ability to just get at a ball, no matter where it is almost unprecedented. So the game is balanced with a second mechanic, which is the Bloodlust mechanic. And you see in the brackets there, it's got Bloodlust 3+. So on vampires, there are Bloodlust 3+ players and there's Bloodlust 2+ players. And every single time you activate a vampire, you have to first roll a Bloodlust check, and on a roll of a 2+ or a 3+, depending on which one we do, which vampire we're talking about, they would pass the check. So if they roll a 3+, they pass. If they roll a 1 or a 2, if it's a Bloodlust 3, they would fail. And that means that they can still pretty much do their action that we're going to do, but if they fail it, they've also then got to bite a Thrall on your team somewhere. So it's very difficult to go and score a touchdown if the Thrall isn't next to the end zone, because you can't walk into the end zone and bite something. You need to have bitten something, and if you can't get there, then you won't score. Or if you're trying to block, then you might not be able to block because there's not a Thrall around you, and therefore you've got to move to where a thrall is and you don't get to do your block action. Now, this is quite tricky, and it means it requires an awful lot of forward planning. And the other key thing is the bloodlust. When it fails and you bite something, you don't do an armor and then an injury, you go straight to injury. So on a 10+, you're going to kill the player, cause a casualty, and on 8+, you're going to remove the player. So every time you fail a bloodlust check, at 44% of the time, that player is going to leave the field. So you can very quickly watch your team diminish over time very, very quickly. Key differences though in Blood Bowl 2 versus 3, if you're coming back from the old game, the old Bloodlust, it used to be a turnover, and it used to also send off the vampire off the field of play. It is still a turnover, but it no longer sends the vampire off the field of play if you fail your Bloodlust. So you don't have to bite something, you can just stand there, and then effectively you lose all your skills in your tackle zones. So it's less of a punishment. We've also got access to multiple rerolls in a turn, so now you can activate lots of vampires and you can move them around. And if you've got lots of rerolls, then you can do an awful lot of rerolling of specific actions, and you can get chains of actions to work really well. And also, the hypnotic gaze trait is hypnogazing on a 2+, not a 3+ now. So they are a lot more powerful, and as such, we've seen vampires in tabletop land skyrocket to the very top end of the power rankings in a lot of places. They're easily in the top 3, and I think along with Amazons, they're typically in the top 2. So very, very powerful team using the right hands, but they require an awful lot of skill and a lot of practice to get them to work, because there's so many different interactions and things you need to consider. So that's the Bloodlust and Hypnogaze. Right, let's go and look at some basic rosters, and let's see what we've got first. One thing I do just want to point out here is that for vampires, if we just start making a new team, inside the client now, there is an arena roster, and there is also a recommended basic template roster for every single race. And both the arena and the basic templates have been updated by someone, and they are very, very strong. So previously we needed these different rosters. You'll find that the basic template for all races now is very, very good. And the arena is also very good. So let's have a quick look at starting roster number 1. So knowing now that rerolls are very important, I've put 4 rerolls in. And we know that the thralls also die, because not only are the opponent attacking them, sometimes you're attacking them. You'll find that a lot of rosters start with 12 or more players. So this has got the 12 players, and then we've got 2 runners, because they are very, very quick and they allow us to be able to score relatively easily on our own offense. And they're also very good at cutting around corners and switching off tackle zones on sides of the pitch that you might not always be able to get to, because movement 8 versus movement 6. So 2 runners, and then the 2 best vampires, I think, which are the 2 throwers, because we're going to want something to get leader to give us another reroll very, very quickly on. So I think this is the roster that I started and have played in a league before, and this out of the 3 is the one that I would recommend that you start with, because I think it's the most all-round balanced one. It's still got 20k of cash left over, so you can either buy some additional dedicated fans if you think you're not going to lose the first couple of games, or you hold it and then you can buy, you can almost certainly buy another thrall immediately, or you then pop into the old apothecary market and you pick one of those up as well. So one of those 2 things is probably what you're doing with it. You're either dedicating fans, or you're buying a thrall or an apothecary. Next one is vampire starting roster number 2. This one is trading a reroll for a 5th vampire, because the team is all about playing vampires. So I've put 1 blitzer in, and I have dropped a reroll down, and then I have also spent a little bit of cash here with a dedicated fan. So we've put 10k of dedicated fan in there. You could hold on the cash, or you could not. It really is, we're talking about degrees of separation rather than a completely different roster change. This might be a bit more fun. Whether it's a bit more meta, I'm not so sure. I think this is probably a little bit more of a rough start, but yeah, it's fine. And then the 3rd roster is one for people who like the Vargeist. I don't know why you like the Vargeist, but I'm sure there can be someone out there that loves the Vargeist. And so with that, of course, again, we had to drop a reroll again. So I've got 3 rerolls. It did fit quite nicely for 13 players. So you've got 3 vampires on a vampire team, which seems a lot light. Kept both the runners for the movement and the ability to move around. We've got a thrower, and then we've got 1 Vargeist. I think personally that this is going to get you into a lot of bother. You're trying to play fighting bowl with a Vargeist when you're not trying to fight. You're trying to hypnogaze and steal the ball and run away and do stuff. And now you've only got 3 players that can hypnogaze, and then an awful lot of rubbishy thralls. So yeah, I very much don't like this roster, but I do always put 3 rosters in, and I tried to build something with a Vargeist to see whether it's possible to make something fun. Fun maybe, effective definitely not. So, right, next thing to talk about is how to level up a vampire team. And one of the things that I have seen both in the tabletop series or talking about both in the Twitch channel is the idea of where should you put pro in a vampire? Should it be first skill? Should it be third skill? And how good is it? So I think we can put this to bed, which is that pro, a little bit like maybe claw, is a good combo skill, but is not a great skill on its own. And to try and bring that to life a little bit, imagine the same scenario. We've got a vampire runner and it needs to dodge away from an opponent, and it rolls a 1. In the first scenario, you've got dodge on that player, you get a free reroll, it just works 2+. The second scenario, and if it doesn't work, by the way, you're going to turn over, so your turn's going to end and be terrible. In the other scenario, we've got pro, so we picked up 1 skill each. Pro means we can reroll that dice if we make a 3+, and then we can reroll the dodge. So really, 2/3 of the time it's going to be fine, but 1/3 of the time that is now a turnover. So 1/3 of all of your dodges is going to be a turnover. That's huge. So I think that pro versus dodge from a moving around perspective, no good. And we've got team rerolls for when it's really important. So you could say, well, I'm going to put a team reroll into the dodge, and then I'm going to run around, I'm going to hypnogaze something, didn't work, all right, I'll pro it. Yeah. And 2/3 of the time, we get to have another go, and then 80% of that time it's going to work. Fine. But if the plan is really, really important, you really want it to work, at that point, you don't want to use pro. You want to use a team reroll. So pro is there for the nice to have moments. A bloodlust that you don't really want to fail, but you can afford to fail. A hypnogaze that would be nice if it worked, but doesn't actually matter. And it turns a lot of those meh moments into moments. It is not the same as block. It is not the same as dodge, and it does not do the same impact. So I think that for me, it's defensive skills like block and dodge, which help you stay standing, help you move around, help you knock over your opponent. Great. They're top tier skills. And then you add pro as a combination to buff those already effective skills. It is not a opening skill. But I'm sure someone's going to try it, and I'm sure someone's going to suggest that I'm wrong. This is my opinion. There are others out there. So, Vargeist. This is sort of building a team. It's not an efficient team, but this is where you could take teams if you were really going to take them. So, a Vargeist. I think if you're going to take it, the first 2 skills, the core skills, are block and mighty blow. Block meaning that you can activate the player in mid-turn and it not be terrible, or you can afford potentially some fruity 2-dice blocks, and it'll do all right. And then mighty blow for once you're bothering to block, then it'll help remove players. Remember that block, mighty blow, and claw don't stack anymore, so it's less powerful in the previous edition, but still nice to add mighty blow onto an injury roll, or if we're punching an AV 8+ target, have mighty blow available for the injury and armor. Additional skills that are sort of nice to haves. Guard, always a nice skill, probably the second strongest skill in the game. You may as well put it on that player, and it'll help the players around him. But notice that nobody else on the whole team has any guard, so it is again a nice to have. And then pro, again for the same reason of, once we've activated it, if the bloodlust doesn't quite work, pro, fine. Vampire throwers. So core skill here is leader, and then I've gone block and dodge and pro, and I've put an agility skill on there Yeah, if you're going to take a stat, I think agility is great. Movement's pretty strong as well. But that sort of line. So one of the two of them needs leader, and then we need to go blodge, and then we need to go pro. This one's just gone that route, but without the leader inside it. I haven't put a stat on it, but that's sort of broadly where the throwers go. They are great ball carriers, they are great marching down the field, and therefore block and dodge and strength 4, an amazingly strong skill combo with a nice to have on the end of it. Right, the blitzers. These probably do a lot of the heavy lifting inside the team, and you'll see that I've built these in a completely different way, or broadly a different way, and they do an awful lot of the punching, the blocking. So given that we've got Juggernaut and Frenzy synergize really well. So Frenzy first, even before block, because they're going to be blitzing a lot. Then I put block on it just to give you some being able to block, reliability. Tackle, which on second thoughts I don't think you really need, because you're going to hypnogate things to switch their skills off. But perhaps you want to tackle, perhaps. And I think we're getting into the realms of nice to haves. We've also put strip ball in there. And then I've also put pro in there. It's probably on those three. It's probably a toss-up between pro and strip ball, and then tackle goes as your 5th skill. I've also put plus armor because by the time you're at this sort of team value, they're going to take the odd whack. You don't want them to leave the field, and therefore plus armor value or even plus 2 armor value would be very, very strong on these players. So I would strongly recommend that, yeah, if we're playing almost Infinity Bowl at this point, these things go up to armor 10 plus or 11 plus. So that's one. The other one is strip ball first. So if you're going to take, again, Juggernaut into strip ball to help you generate pushbacks to cause the ball to go on the floor, then block, then frenzy, then pro. So it's broadly that second half is the same. And again, I put the armor value on there. Then we move into the runners. The first core skill I think on runners as a core skill is dodge, because you want to be able to move around, and that's just dodge. After that, I've then created a block dodge one, so it's a little bit more resilient with pro on the end, so the hypnogaze is a little bit more likely to work, and then bolted in plus movement and plus armor value to try and enhance the thing they're good at, which is moving around, and diminish the thing they're not good at, which is being flimsy. I think that's a strong player, and if you had 2 of those, you'd be fine. And then the other runner I've built more into the sort of the mold of a one-turner. So we've got dodge, we've got sidestep to really just help you push that player forward straight away. We've got pro because it's a great second combo skill. And then I've also put sprint and sure feeds in here because that just helps you motor down the field. They're not needed, but you certainly could go in that direction. Now, in the departure from, I've talked about lots of different skills and ways of leveling the vampires. The linemen, there are really only 4 skills that you would be even interested in, I think. And if even at like high team value, if your lineman had no skills, you would just shrug, you wouldn't care, meh. But the ones you were probably interested in, block and dodge, block and wrestle, to be able to give yourself a little bit more resilience on the line, or just the ability to not turn over throwing a 2 dice block. We've got dirty player to try and generate some removals. And we've got kick to try and pin them up back in a corner so that you can then separate the ball carrier and the rest of their team, typically, so that you can go and attack it. I think of those, probably dirty player is the least valuable, but we are not playing a removals game. We are not about trying to get numbers parity and go 9 versus 9 or 8 versus 8. Nope, we are absolutely all about stealing the ball off your opponent and scoring defensive touchdowns. So, dirty player would only be used in a surgical strike for a key player like a werewolf or a war dancer that's on the floor that we can kick in the face and try and generate a removal. But I think no skills is totally fine. So that's the general leveling up. Let me translate that into kind of what that looks like as you go through the gears and go from 1000 TV up to maybe 1750. So first of all, low team value Blood Bowl. I've put in broadly your first skill for all of those players. So I've taken the base, which is 2 throwers, 2 vampires, or indeed you could have had 2 throwers, 2 vampires and 1 blitzer. And the first things I've added to it. So I've either added a blitzer or a reroll, depending on your start point, but we've converged to the same point. I've added another player, so we got to 13. You could even go to 14 and that would be fine. And I've also added the apothecary. So that's where the cash component of the first few games has gone. Broadly two more players and an apothecary. and then the star player point component. Now, I'm assuming that the MVPs are going to land on the thralls, so you're going to end up having to level them up. If you do, I would just put block on all of them, because that means that they're going to put less pressure on your rerolls, which is what you wanted to spend on the vampire actions. So I just block, 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 block. If you want to put a bit of mixture in there, then maybe block wrestle. But I don't think that low TV vampires are quite ready for a kick player yet. So it's block wrestle. And that's your preference in terms of whether or not you want to be combat orientated or indeed trying to make space with your wrestle. On the throwers, I put leader to give us an extra reroll, because we were going to be putting a lot of pressure on the rerolls. We don't have blodge across the board yet. So immediately a leader. That's probably the first skill I would try and get on the throwers out of the two. And then I put block on the other one in preparation to go dodge straight afterwards. Given the vampire runners move around a lot, first skill dodge. If you manage to get a second skill on one of them, I would blodge them and put block on there. And if you're lucky enough that within the first 7 or 8 games, you can get both players 2 skills, just blodge both of them. But there we go. I think that's the strong point. If you started the blitzer, you probably didn't level it, but if you did start with a blitzer, then there's a reasonable chance that you are able to score with it, or it's generated some star player points through casualties or picking up a random MVP, and therefore I think a strip ball is probably the way forward. The other skill, it's strip ball or it's frenzy. I think they're both really good, and I think there's very little between it, but I think strip ball is probably like 55 to 45 better, because you can then you're more frequently going to be able to generate turnover opportunities to take the ball away. We should also probably cover off about whether you should random skills on vampires, and I think the answer to that question is, unless you're going to go through an imminent redraft and potentially you are on the cusp of whether you're happy to actually replace the player, I think chosen skills on vampires is so powerful, because when we went through the previous slide, previous screen, we weren't looking at lots of different skills in each skill tree. We were looking for specific ones to do specific jobs. So I don't think randoming is such a good idea. I would choose. On the thrall lineman, however, given that the MVP would put them immediately onto general access randoming, I would random, and then you can fire them if you've got spec excess cash, or you can just suck up having 10k for a tackle piece or a dauntless piece. Just be careful though that you don't suddenly end up with 5 or 6 random thralls and you're carrying 50k, 60k of bloat, because you want to be keeping your team value as low as possible when you're playing vampires, because they can spiral very quickly out of control. Right, moving on, mid-team values. This is around the 1500 mark, and now I would expect most of the vampires to be picking up into their second skill, or even potentially into their third skill in some cases. So the leader one is now picked into block. We've now got a blodge runner, a blodge thrower, blodge here, and then I've taken up the second blitzer, and I have then put block on both of them. You'll notice here that I've not put pro anywhere on this field, on this team, and that is deliberate. So I think this is where we've gone to. So cash wise, I've bought the extra blitzer, and I've just bought another player. So the thing with cash is that the thralls die a lot. So you're going to end up spending a lot of your day-to-day or match-to-match income on just buying more thralls, or you might even have a team of 15 or even 16, because you'll have 1 or 2 miss next games every single match. So you'll be cycling them or fixing some of the stat busts. I think the only 2 stat busts are immediate sacks are minus strength and minus AV. Everything else, passing you definitely ignore, agility you basically ignore, movement it's a nice to have, fix it, or it just becomes like absolute stand on the line of scrimmage fodder until it dies properly. Again, I haven't put any skills in. I don't expect them to level. Do not expect them to get to 2 skills. If they do, you're probably not keeping them anyway. So do not try and level up a thrall and turn it into some sort of superhuman. I think that would be madness in my head. But yeah, this is the medium T value, and I think at this point vampires are going to be very scary for a lot of people. Finally, we go on to, it's not high TV, it's higher TV, and at this point you'll see that I've just basically added pro all the way across the board. So suddenly a load of the vampires have turned into blodge, and they've gone blodge pro. So this is where they are obnoxious, difficult to deal with, difficult to knock over, and they just super getting to the point of super reliability. at this point, they would absolutely start dominating and winning on one-off matches or series of matches. Their only downside, their only Achilles heels would be 1, redraft, and 2, a really heavy bash environment where they get ground down over a course of maybe 5 or even 10 games. Again, haven't bothered putting skills on the thralls. I've talked about it previously. If you do end up with a load of thralls, then you could do this. I don't think it's really a good idea unless you are going to do something like this, right? So imagine that we do have a thrall, and we'll level it up and we'll go block, we'll go sure hands, and then it just somehow just keeps getting points. So we go double that, and let's go with that. Right, so now we've got another vampire, a movement 8, agility 2+, but look what it's done to the team value. They're really expensive, and ultimately it's only AV8+. So if you wanted to do something entirely insane, you could try and do something like this, which would be a really fast ball carrier. You could maybe stick a secondary skill on it as well. If we're going to be completely silly, let's go completely silly. There we go. Block, dodge, sure hands, movement 8, agility 2+. For a 200k thrall, which started life as a 40k thrall, and is now worth more than any of your vampires that are on your team. It's a vampire without bloodlust, but the amount of star player points you would need, I think, is the reason why you won't ever actually see one of these. We can call it a unicorn or a rainbow, right? You're not going to see this, but it doesn't look pretty out of the window. Right. I now talk to you about inducements, actually. We're not going to go to cosmetics yet. Inducements. Vampire inducements. There are 3 inducements that you probably care about. That's it. Number 1, a wizard. Because you're playing for the ability to be able to interact with your opponent's ball carrier, a wizard plus hypnogaze plus a blitz really should get you the ball back. So the first 150, every time you get to 150k, you take a wizard. Note that vampire teams are very expensive and they are very likely to bloat. You're not going to be in a position where you're getting lots of inducements very often, but if you do, it's a wizard. You remember this video and go, oh yeah, it's a wizard. Next, if you have 190k to play with, then it's Ivan the Animal, which is the strength 4 white blitzer, and he's got block, he's got tackle, he's got juggernaut, and he's strength 4, and he's very good. So if you had, let's say around the 200k mark, you could take that. I think it would be matchup dependent which one I take first, whether it's the wizard or the star player, if I could only choose one, but I'd probably come down on the side of the wizard first. If I had 350k, I'd take both. And then the last inducement is also a star player, which is Count Luther von Drachenberg. I think if you're getting him, you're being outclassed, because he's about 340k, I think, and you're not going to see him very often. But he's great. He's a strength 5 vampire with block and sidestep, but he doesn't have dodge, and therefore he's a little bit prone to getting stuck on things and then failing dodges and turning over. So he's okay, but I think the first two, the 150k price point and the 190k price point, are your top 2. And then if you've got 700k, then go and get a second star player as well. Right, cosmetics. As with all seasons in Blood Bowl 3, we get to see a set of new cosmetics. So if I click into here, this is the Vargeist in a red colour. He's just got all red, and this is the legendary side of things. I think it looks cool out of game. I will show what it looks like in game shortly as well, but I do think that this one looks pretty cool. The customization options, the Claws of Horror is through the Blood Pass, and then Fallen Lord and Terror are purchasable things afterwards. I've put the full Claws of Horror cosmetic pack on him, and then you've got this one, which is the Tempelhof Shadow, which is the legendary thing which gives him the flying thing around him. I think that's pretty cool. Next, we got some throwers. This is also from the Blood Pass, and this is all the epic stuff that you would see in the Blood Pass. And I've put the full set on there for him to see what he looks like. the one that probably stands out is the right arm slot. So if I just take that away, that's what it would look like. Sorry, that's what it would look like normal. If you're just going through it, the Housemaster is what it looks like with the non-legendary Blood Pass, and then, oh dear, it's timed out. And then we've got the hero of Helfen in there as well. Now I'm on a test server at the moment doing this, so this is possibly why the test server has fell over. Let me just quickly relaunch the game. Hoping to do this all in one take. And there we go. Right, back to these. So we've done the throwers. The runners have an awful lot of different types of cosmetic. We've got the Duchess one shown here, and they look pretty cool. There's no legendary elements for either the throwers or the runners. There's nothing in the battle pass I didn't see for this. It's a question of whether you want a cape or not. And the Duchess looks alright. I also built a Crypt Wind, which is on another team, and I think they look pretty cool. So that one looks quite a lot of fun. Oddly though, if you go for the basic default, don't change anything, shoulder pads, that really actually sort of helps them stand out on the field. So whether you'd actually ever take any of the three of this, I don't know. Right, onto the Blitzers. The Blitzers have a striker which looks like a goblin head that's been bolted on, or you've got a bat warrior or a blood hunter. Let me just flick this forward. So I've got this onto a bat warrior, and he looks a little bit like Batman from a certain set of films, and so the bat warriors look pretty cool. What he doesn't have though is a cape, and bearing in mind in game you're going to be looking at this guy from behind. So this one, no cape, that's the striker, and the Bat Warrior also has no cape. However, if you go to the basic version of this, he does have a cape, but all of the other three versions do not. So bear that in mind in just a moment. Then we've got this guy. I think this is a thrall. So this I think looks a bit odd for a thrall. It's almost a little bit overdressed. So the Sylvanian Elite, and I think the things that sort of make this thrall a lot overdressed is the hat or the helm. The basic helm is that, the toned down version is that, and then we've got the Sylvanian Elite. And given that you can actually get rid of the shoulder armor using the basic or one of the deckhand items, then you can really tone this guy down. This is the deckhand version. Oh no, this is the Corsair version. Let's go to the deckhand version first. So deckhand version, he's holding a book, and he looks pretty simple. I realised that actually the deckhand probably looks better with no shoulder armour and no head, so that it's just a basic human lineman, right? It'll stand out a lot more on the pitch, that your thralls will look like one thing and the vampires will look like another thing. And remember, no cape, right? So this is what this would look like. And if we go back to the Corsair version, it's starting to look a little bit vampire-esque. I think that the helm and the shoulder pads, they're just a little bit pointy, and you've not got the quick visual dissimilarity between the two. So what I'm going to show you is what they look like inside the game. So we'll do a quick friendly match. I'll play hot seat. We'll go my teams, which is Vampire 1. This has had a bunch of the cosmetics applied to it. And then Vampire Default, which is just what you would get. We'll receive the ball. So this is Vampire 1. And so this is, once the cosmetics have been applied, this is what they look like. You can see here that these are default ones. That one is the deckhand, where it's had its stuff taken away. And that is the one that's had a lot of tuning up. And I think if I just stand that here, in comparison, right, they look quite similar. So if you go down the route of changing the capes off the runners, you are going to look at these two and think that they are very similar. Now let's set up for the default version. So I've lined the players up so you can see the difference between, that's a default runner, and that is a tuned up or a cosmeticified runner. We've got the Vargeist naked, or the default Vargeist, and the Vargeist with the legendary cosmetic. And I think if I just turn the skills off for a second, there we go. You can see the difference, and yeah, Vargeist stands out anyway, but I think that the legendary one is pretty cool. The Blitzers are these guys here, and I don't think you can really tell the difference between the vampire, the Batman symbols, and the default ones. I just switch the pitch around so you can see, that's what this looks like when you've had all the cosmetics applied, and that's what it doesn't, looks like when it hasn't. I don't think there's a great deal to choose from there. The throwers, the default throwers, and the tuned up versions, I think that this is where you do see something, right? If you're looking at it from your opponent's perspective, i.e. forward, you are going to see these flaps of skin, and you can definitely tell the difference between the three sets of vampires here, right? No cape, cape, big flap of skin thing. And I think that when you look at the vampires initially, if you don't do anything to them, that they've all got capes, and they're not as super obvious, I think, for me anyway, in terms of what players what. I think the thralls are completely different, but you want to do something to the vampires. So, yeah. What you want to do with it, I don't know, but there we go. That's what I wanted to show you, which is the impact of actually purchasing or applying any of the cosmetics in game on all the player types. I couldn't show you every single one. I'm not going to go through it all now, but here is a selection of what I think you could do. One thing I'm absolutely going to sort of close out on, which is the runners. You see the impact of their shoulder armor that makes it really pointy. I think it's really important that you don't take that away, because that's what happens when you do. They're not very obvious. So in some cases, the basic item is probably one of the better ones. And we'll just flick this to red versus blue mode for a second, which is the there we go. And you see the difference with the cape or non-cape. So do be careful and do think about what cosmetics you apply, and do try and make sure that the vampires themselves stay apart. Right, that for me is overall how to build a team, what they look like, but I haven't covered any gameplay. However, when the vampire team gets released on Tuesday, which is for me 2 days time, I will then put this guide video at the very first of a playlist, and I'm going to do an arena run and I'm going to do a ladder run, so you're going to be able to see the 2 different game modes that you're likely to experience and how you would play through them. So if you've enjoyed the guide in terms of how to build a team but want to see how to play the team, please come and watch me on Twitch or on YouTube over the next coming few weeks or months. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and I will see you sometime soon. Thank you.